Alright, this is Ubaid on behalf of Electronics, and in this video we're going to talk about two federal laws in the US. Now, number one has to do with your Financial Institution Reform, Recovery, and Enforcement Act. Okay, so this is your Financial Institutions Reform Institutions. This is institutions. Reform, Recovery, and Enforcement Act. So this is Reform. Okay, Recovery and Enforcement Act. Now, when it comes to Financial Institution Reform, Recovery, and Enforcement Act, okay, this act became law in August 1989. Okay, so the act became law in August 1989. Okay, and basically what ended up happening was, okay, because of this act, okay, the S&Ls had to raise their capital requirements. Okay, so these savings and loan associations, okay, that is mostly made up of borrowers and depositors, okay, they had to raise their capital requirements, okay, which meant that for them to invest in risky loans or any kind of loans whatsoever, mortgages or otherwise, okay, they would need to have a higher capital. Okay, their banks would need to have a higher capital. Okay, so as part of this act, okay, banks would need to have a higher capital. All right, now apart from that, okay, there was another federal law that kicked in after the crash of the stock market in 1929. Okay, and this federal law is your Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation Improvement Act. Okay, or FDICIA. Okay, this is FDICIA. Okay, this is called the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation Improvement Act. Now, as part of this act, what ended up happening was, okay, they had to bail the S&Ls, the Savings and Loan Associations, as well as the Deposit Insurance Fund, okay, which meant, okay, they had to raise deposit insurance premiums, okay, and force the FDIC to close failed banks using the least expensive option, okay. So we know that S&L, Savings and Loan Associations, okay, they were in trouble after the Great Depression of 1929 because obviously what they ended up doing was they invested in risky loans and they weren't able to pay back their depositors. As a result of which, okay, the FDICIA kicked in to help these S&Ls, the Savings and Loan Associations, to help them get out of bankruptcy, to help them get out of a desperate situation, okay, and they also forced the FDIC to close, okay, failed banks. Okay, so rather than helping the FDIC to bail out banks, okay, rather than helping institutions to bail banks out, okay, they ended up, okay, telling them to close the banks because they didn't want to take the extra risk, the additional risk, as a result of which, okay, what ended up happening was, okay, the banks were closed. Okay, the banks that were going bankrupt with less capital were, okay, being closed, and, okay, the S&Ls, okay, they were not, okay, involved in bailing these banks out. Okay, so this has to do with FDICIA. FDICIA. Okay, so bailout of S&L, so bailing S&Ls out. Okay, and deposit insurance fund. All right, so that would be it for this video. On behalf of V Electronics, this is Obaid. Have yourself a great day.